crow or something.
Right.
Why are your legs so floppy now? Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to Please Hang Out With Me, I'm Going Nuts, a show about constraints. With me, as always, is my co-host, a baby. This is a show where we interview people that we're interested in talking to, and the interview lasts either about 20 to 30 minutes or until my co-host gets tired of doing an interview, and then the show is over. Today we are talking with Joey Alison Sayers, who is someone I'm very excited to have a sit-down conversation with. That's not happening at Zine Fest or elsewhere across a table while it's deafeningly loud, and while I'm running around also trying to make sure that no one sets anything on fire in the bathroom. Because that's the punk rock thing to do at a Zine Fest. This is not based on like a real scenario. One year the Silver Sprocket guys did like give free haircuts at their table and then like got too drunk by the end of the show to clean up all the hair that they left.
No.
Which we've talked to them about it since then. I'm not like telling tales outside of school. But the point of the anecdote is it's so nice to see you and talk to you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. And I am getting a haircut. Right?
Yeah,
okay,
of course.
Good.
Tell us a little bit about what you do.
I do a lot of things. I have to say, I identify first as a mom these days. But that's...
Boring.
Mom jokes. Yeah, but more artistically, I'm a cartoonist. And that's my primary artistic medium these days is comics, although I've painted and written short stories and sculpted and just about every other conceivable art form. Played music.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe I did know that you played music. Do you play a specific instrument?
Well, I play guitar. I was once quite proficient at the clarinet.
No kidding.
Although it would be embarrassing to
to admit that on an interview show.
Yes. No, I'm proud of the clarinet. So I've always done a little bit all of it, but I've mostly focused on comics for the last handful of years, and I work in a library, which is kind of creative in its own way.
Definitely.
Yeah. And
this is your first big media interview since you had a big announcement about going legit. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Leaving behind the puny little Zine Fests.
I'll still check in on the Zine Fest. I'll wave from my helicopter. I'm starting as the writer of long-running comic strip Alley Oop. I'm going to be working with artist Jonathan Lemon, who is incredible, and the two of us will be breathing new life into an 86-year-old strip. And I think it's going to be really fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Have you been like going back and reading all of Alley Oop in the meantime, or reading all the academic works that have been written about it?
I'm doing a little bit of that. To be honest, I have read it in the past, and I've been trying to bone up on some of the more recent work, but I don't want to retread what's already been done. I don't want to fall into any of the traps that they've done, that the previous writers and artists have done. So I really want to come at it fresh. So I know about it, and I have the skeletal structure of it. But my hope is to really just go new places with it. And just, essentially reinvent it. And I think that'd be best for the strip and best for my own happiness. And I don't know if it'll be best for the people that have been reading it since the 30s, but I'm hoping to...
So this is something I'm interested in because... So in some ways this reboot is maybe not, but probably modeled in some way on the recent Nancy reboot. And Nancy is a comic that there have been like academic articles written about Nancy and how Ernie Bushmiller put together a joke. But also like Ernie Bushmiller has been dead for quite a while.
Yeah.
And when Olivia Jaimes, the pseudonymous... do you know who Olivia Jaimes is, by the way? way.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't know. But
and
if I
then-
did, I'd say I didn't.
Okay. We'll talk about this after the show. When Olivia Jaimes took it over, people weren't, and when I say people, I mean Go Comics commenters, which, boy, that's a tiny, tiny and angry subset of internet commenters.
Yeah.
They weren't saying, oh, this is betraying Ernie Bushnoy's original vision. This is saying, they were saying, who's the guy who, Glenn Gilchrist. They were comparing her to Gilchrist, the previous artist.
Oh.
And they were mad that, like, the titties weren't big enough.
Jesus.
And it's all these people who were like, who just spend all day commenting on comics, on like newspaper comics.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you have plans to draw the titties big enough?
Well, Alley-oop is definitely, the character himself is gonna just have humongous jokes to tell. No. But I'm not doing the art, so,
Right.
but that's definitely not on our list of things to do with the strip.
You're not writing like, Alley-oop crosses his arms over his generous bosoms. It's been a few months now, I think, wrote this really beautiful comic that went up at the Nib, which is an excellent site. That was essentially an autobio comic, which is sort of how I came to zines, was by reading autobio comics, and it was so nice to see someone like dipping back into the old genres.
Yeah.
Do you want to go hang out with Joey for a minute? Okay. Hi, baby. Hi, beautiful baby. You wrote this really beautiful comic essentially about coming out as trans to your daughter.
Yeah.
And what that conversation was like. And it's like, it's not a long comic, but it's longer than 4 panels. And at the end, there is no major conflict. It's just like, this is the story. She's like, cool. And from what I've seen, that comic got a really positive reception.
Yeah.
In like everywhere that I've seen it. But now you're about to become public to folks who are not coming to zines via autobio comics.
Right.
They're angry, I'm presuming old people who spend their time commenting on newspaper comics.
Yeah.
So the question I asked you earlier is, do you have a plan to talk to your kids about the other part of being a trans woman in public?
Yeah.
And being a trans woman on the internet, which is where you have to be for your job, for better or for worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's something... Hi.
He bites, by the way.
Uh-oh.
He's got teeth now. He bit my belly button the other day, and it was the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it already. My kids are 3 and 6, and, they know all about what it means to be trans. They've met other trans people. We read books about it, picture books, and other kid-friendly books about it, and I talk to them. But yeah, I mean, the stresses and the struggles, we haven't really gotten too deep into that yet. Or even really what online is. They know what the internet is, but it's still nebulous, and I don't think they know that it is often a place of conflict and people yelling at one another and threatening one another.
Right.
Yeah, and to be fair to Alley-oop's current fan base, I don't know their demographics. I don't know how old they are or how stodgy they are. The comments so far on the site, and we haven't even launched. I mean, we're not launching our us doing the strip until January. It'll be the first week in January. But people on the Alley message boards essentially are already talking about it and weighing in and wondering what it's going to be like. But I've already started to notice that people are, and not just on the Alley-oop site, but on other sites. I've noticed that people are already taking note of the fact that I'm a woman and that I'm trans, and in ways that don't feel great. It doesn't. Nobody's been horrible or threatening or anything like that, but people have said some things that have made me feel uncomfortable and question my, I guess, my ability to do it in a way that I'm just not seeing mirrored in my cis straight male counterpart who's doing the art. And who knows, that may change, but so I mean it's very early days, so who knows how it's really all going to play out.
Of course.
But I'm just gonna go forward with it and just follow my vision, and like it or lump it is kind of my take on it.
But this is a constraint that
Yeah.
Women and trans folks and people of color do creative work under.
Yeah.
Like Sarah Jong, who used to be here in the area and who's recently got hired by the New York Times.
Yeah.
When she got hired, trolls found where she made some jokes about white people, and now she gets death threats every day.
Yeah.
Which I do not think that's going to happen to the new artist Ellie.
Yeah.
But there's a way in which prejudice and specific anti-woman and anti-trans prejudice has been weaponized.
Yeah.
Just to maintain a status quo in ways that I don't think that us nice liberals really predicted.
No. Yeah, I don't know what people find so threatening about it, about different people. I mean, there's there's this whole Comicsgate thing going on, which frankly I'm not super well versed in what's going on. I mean, I know a bit about it. I know enough about it to know that there are some people that are really threatened by women and queer people and people of color being involved in comics or being represented in comics, and seeing that as I don't know. I'm not sure. They see it as being, well, I don't want to speak for them. I think how can we not benefit from a broader range of people telling stories and being included in stories, especially in comics, which isn't owned by anybody. Women have been in comics since the beginning, often in unsung or uncredited roles, and it's 2018. Regardless of what Trump and the Republicans want to think, it's the 21st century, and we're moving forward, and we're not going away.
Yeah. I want to ask you some other questions that are not super depressing. But I can't think of any. What was your path like to becoming a parent?
It was...
were you you were always oh, I want to have kids someday?
No. I mean, when I was little, when I was a kid myself, I thought, oh, of course, I'll have kids someday.
Right.
I mean, I think that's sort of natural when you're a kid. Who wouldn't want a bunch of kids around? They're the best people. But as I entered adulthood, I became really staunchly anti-kid. And I was I will never, ever, ever have kids. And to the point where it became part of my identity, honestly. It was that I was anti-kid.
On MySpace, did you mark, I don't want kids?
I probably would have, yeah.
My mom joined MySpace and she marked, I don't want kids. In...
It's a rough way to find out.
2003, yeah.
I've met your mom, I don't think. She doesn't seem like she would be that mean. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Funny?
It was funny.
You're funny.
You sweet boy. You sweet boy.
Yeah, so I was dead set against it.
Was there a reason why?
Oh, I had all kinds of reasons, and none of them were real. I mean, for me, they were all just smoke screens that didn't in any way reflect my real reasons.
Wait, so
I mean, I was oh, well, there's too many kids, or I don't want to be tied down.
Sure.
Kids are boring. And those are all legitimate reasons, for the most part. Legitimate reasons for people to not want to have kids, and I think not having kids is a completely legitimate choice, and I support anyone who makes that choice.
Sure, of course.
But for me, a couple really key things happened, and one was that I finally admitted that I was trans, and began living as my true gender, and that goes a long way towards solving a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I think it goes for a lot of things, not just being trans, but really just finding your authentic self and and letting you live an authentic life. I think allows you to make better and more authentic decisions in other areas of your life. At least for me, and I mean, it's spending an enormous amount of energy protecting this part of myself that I didn't want anyone to see, and that was affecting my relationships and my own mental health and just countless areas of my life. I mean, I was a very unhappy and unhealthy person for many years. But yeah, so coming out was huge, and transitioning was huge, and then I started working at the library, and then it was actually around. So here I was finally living my authentic life, and then I was around kids and families and realizing how much joy that families had. So I came home from work one day and told my wife that I changed my mind and I wanted to have kids.
Oh, so you were already married by this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a tough one. Technically, under the eyes of the law, no. But we were married. We considered ourselves married. I mean, my wife and I have been together for 16, going on 17 years. So we've been through a lot. And for most of that, most of that was post-transition, although not all of it. So we were viewed by the world and by the state and by ourselves and by everyone as a lesbian couple. And so for...
I'm shaking my head at the thing that my kid is doing right now, to be clear.
So we couldn't, we couldn't get married.
Right.
So we only got married a few years ago. I think 3-4 years ago at this point. No, maybe 2 years ago. Has not been very long. But yeah, so it had been a sticking point in our relationship for a long time, whether or not we wanted to have kids. So, but here we are, and now we're moms with 2 kids, and it's amazing, and it's the best part of my life, far and away. I mean, I wouldn't ever feed my kids an easel.
Listen, this is my show.
But
you're a guest in my house. I bought these things and they're too big, so it's the only thing you can use them for, really, just feed to your kids. It's really interesting to hear you talk about that, because I feel like I was totally thought I would have kids someday until I was in a position to have kids. And then you actually have to, think about it, which you don't have to do the rest of the time.
Right.
And for me, I really did, a couple of things happened. There was, a triggering event where I was like, oh, I need to actually, start going to therapy again. And after a few years of therapy and working some shit out, then I finally got to a point where I felt like I could be a good parent. One of the things that was sticking for me is that, didn't have a great childhood, and my parents didn't seem to. I won't say that they didn't enjoy being parents, but it was something that was clearly a struggle for them to be present. And now that I have this kid, I think a lot about my parents now, about what they were doing when I was this age, and how they felt about their. Because my parents are both creative people, and they have different relationships to their creative outlets, but how they fit that in, and it's something that I'm really struggling with right now myself. Do you think about how, do you use your parents as sort of a template for where you're at
I wouldn't say so much a template, but I mean, I consider them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think about what I'm doing and where I am in my life and how I'm interacting with my kids and what it was probably like for them.
Mm-hmm.
But by the same token, I also think about what it's going to be like for my kids when they're adults.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting part. It's just interesting to me. Part of being a parent is being part of like this long chain
Yeah.
of humanity in a different way, where you're like an active link in tying people together. But yeah, I mean, I love my parents a lot. We, our relationship was strained for a long time, in kind of early adulthood, particularly. But we all had some stuff to work through, and we get along great now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And
And they,
that's great for your kids too.
yeah, they're really important parts of my kids' lives, and mine and my wife's as well. But yeah, I mean, I think about them. Everything was so different. I mean, for my parents, growing up, when they had me when they were 30, and which I always thought was really old. I thought they were like the old parents, like because all my friends had younger parents or parents that seemed younger to me. I don't really know, but
Right.
And I was always so resentful that I had these old parents, and now, I was older when my kids were born, than that. But I was also I grew up in the 70s. I was born in the mid 70s. Just come right out and say it. I'm old. No, I'm medium. And just things were different in that I mean they bought a house
Yeah.
on one income in San Jose. My childhood house has like gone up 20% in value since they bought it. Salaries have not gone up 20%, not 20%, 20 times in salaries.
I was going to say 20%. Like what?
Yeah.
Like wow, they really fucked that up. But yeah.
No, but
salaries have not
gone up 20-fold.
Right.
So things are just a lot different. And they're just different people. My parents are not creatives. My dad's an engineer, and my mom I think she's a secret artist, but she doesn't act on it. So I didn't have models for that exactly growing up, or how to fit it in, or how to do it all. Because when they were done with work, they were done with work.
Right, that's a big thing.
Yeah, and then it was time for TV and beer.
Yeah.
But for me, and this has been true most of my adult life, when I'm done with my job, I come
go to your
home
other job.
and I go to my other job.
Yeah.
And I work and then I go to bed.
And at some point you have to be a parent.
Right, and then it all mixed in with there as being a parent. But it's good. It's a good. I feel like I have a good work-life balance. I feel like I'm a very attentive mom, and I care about my kids a lot and give them a lot of my time and energy. So.
Pardon me for 1 second.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Could I have a hit of that?
Yeah.
Oh no, I meant you.
You took a break from comics.
Yeah,
In the time that I knew you.
that's right.
Because I met you and you're making comics that I loved, and you're still making comics that I love, to be clear before I continue the sentence. But I love them because they were doing this interesting thing with constraints, which I keep harping on, but it's my show.
Yeah, it's a good topic.
Because I think I tried to sum it up and I think I told you this at some point, and you were like, meh.
Sounds like me.
You were drawing 3-panel comics for the 4th panel.
Yeah.
And after the 3rd panel, the people still had to live within that universe and that punchline.
Yeah.
And that's where the real joke came out. So not every strip, but a lot of your strips had a decoy punchline in the 3rd panel.
Yeah.
And then the 4th one was where and then that was the Joey Alison Sayers magic touch.
Right. Yeah.
That was where you just kiss the comic on the forehead and it glows like that. And then you stopped making comics.
I did. Yeah. yeah, I found, well, it was a constraints issue. I had, a kid in my house, a newborn baby, and it just, it was overwhelming, being a new mom. It was really overwhelming, and I couldn't conceive of how to do it all, of how to do comics and raise the kid. It just didn't seem doable. So I decided to just take a break, because I didn't want to cheat my daughter out of anything, out of time or attention or anything like that. So I deprioritized comics to the point where I just was like, I'm not doing them. And for about 3 years, I did hardly anything. Mm-hmm. I did a couple small, like pieces on, for contract work.
Right.
And then within that time, my son was born. So suddenly I had 2 kids, and ironically, that's when I realized that I needed actually to get back into doing comics. That I was doing everyone a disservice by cutting that really important thing out of my life. By everyone, I mean everyone in my family, not the whole world. Like, not that full of myself.
6 of 1. I mean, in some ways, like, the creative work that you put out into the world is like, it's your gift to the world.
In some ways, yeah, I guess.
Or it's your curse upon the world, depending on, like, if you're bad at drawing.
Right. Are you saying I'm bad at drawing? And thus concludes the show. No. I mean, I do. I do have things to say, I feel like. And I wanted to share those things. And also, it's something that I've been doing since I was very young. I've grabbed the snake. I hope that's okay.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. This is a fidget-friendly studio space.
Oh, good. I mean, I've been drawing comics since I was, probably 5 or younger. And I missed it a lot. Mm-hmm. So I realized that I had to come back in. And honestly, I'm happier now that I do it. I think, I think it makes me a better parent. I think it makes me a better person.
Did it, I don't want to pose this to be trite in any way, but did it feel like you had to be honest about your identity once again? You tried to deny that you're an artist.
Yes.
And that ruined your life because you were lying.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that, I was trying to cut that out of my life, and it's not cut outable. It's too ingrained in who I am. And I mean, and I'm actually much more attuned to that now. Even if I go a day without drawing, I mean, I can do it, but I feel antsy. I feel uncomfortable. I feel like I'm not living a full day. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm. It's like not eating for a day. It's like something. It doesn't feel right. It feels like I'm keeping something from myself. So, mm-hmm. I've figured out ways to just fit it in. I mean I'm working all the time. I mean that in a good way because it's what I love to do. I mean, right. Ideally I would just be doing comics. Like as much as I love working at the library and helping people. If I was just doing comics, I think that'd be great.
Well, yes.
But I
I'm really glad people get to see this because this is what most of my conversations are genuinely like now.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about kids getting older is getting to include them in more parts of your life. Like I sit down and draw with my kids sometimes. Mm-hmm. Or just hang out with them while they do their thing and I do my thing and we talk and ooh, a bandit. Oh.
Did you get scared?
I did. Yeah.
Oh.
This is not eating clay.
Oh, there we go.
Hey.
Oh, it all went inside the bib. That was cool. Good job.
Well done.
Well, that's our show. Thank you so much for joining us, Joey.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful to see you.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd offer you this child, but he just threw up inside of his bib, so I feel like he's going to be like a cool burst full of barf right now. He's squeezing those come oozing out.
Yeah.
No, thanks. This has been Please Hang Out with Me, I'm Going Nuts, a show about constraints. This is a production of Artwork Practice. Visit us on the web at artworkpractice.com. And Joey, where can people find you and your work?
Best place is probably on Twitter, at Joey Allison with one L, or jsayers.com is my website.
And you already always have new comics coming up on your site and on Go Comics and on the Nib and probably other places I'm forgetting.
Yeah.
And the Alley-Oop comics are going to be in actual newspapers?
Yeah, actual newspapers and on the newspaper of the world, the internet. That's I trademarked that, so you can have that. Starting on January 7th.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks.
Okay, hold this baby for 1 second so I can stop recording. We also sing a closing theme song.
You are my sunshine.
No, nothing copyrighted.
Oh.
Make something up.
Isn't that in the public domain?
Well, I don't have time to look it up.
Okay, here we go.
We're recording, Joey.
Please help me. What is the title of the show? Please
hang out with me. I'm going nuts.
Please hang out. Let's try this again. Okay, ready? Please. No. Kind of maybe more like a jazzier thing. Yeah. Please hang out with me. I'm going